Welcome back to another video at Math Rocks with Mr. Cox. This is the second part of two parts in a series about angle relationships. Back in part one, you had a figure like this, some sort of geometric figure that's got a bunch of angles and shapes and so forth. And in part one, we were talking about vertical angles. We were talking about linear pairs, and we're also talking about triangles. However, in this video, it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to be talking about three different kinds of angles, corresponding angles, alternate interior angles, and what's called same-side interior angles. And we'll be discussing their definitions, but also how they're used mathematically to actually be able to solve for the missing angles that you see in the figures. So, with no further ado, let's get it on! The first kind of angle we're going to be looking at in today's video is what's called corresponding angles. And if you look over here in the diagram, we have two lines are going across horizontally across the screen here. And we have a third line that's cutting through them, and that's called the transversal. And what happens is corresponding angles are defined as being in the same position. So this angle over here, which is in pink, and this other one that's in pink, would both be what's called corresponding angles because they're both in the top left. Or the blue ones, they would both be in the bottom left, or the yellow because in the top right, etc., etc. Also understand that even though these lines here look like they're parallel, they're not right now. And the reason why is we have to actually see markings on the diagram that show that they are parallel. So I'm going to go ahead and draw those in now. So that means parallel. And I put another one over here. So these lines are now parallel. Once these lines are parallel and we have the transversal cutting through them, the corresponding angles will be congruent, but only if the lines are parallel. So before I put the parallel marks here, they were not parallel and therefore they were not congruent. So for instance, what do I mean by that? Take this angle right here and it looks like it's about, I don't know, 100 degrees. So if it's 100 degrees, what that means is the one that corresponds with it down here is also 100 degrees. Or let's say we take the yellow one here. Let's say we say that is 80 degrees. That means the one that corresponds with it, which is the top right over here, is also 80 degrees. The second type and fifth type overall that we're going to be looking at in these videos is called alternate interior. Once again, we have the transversal, this time cutting through a little bit different here. And there is a relationship between them in that interior means between the two lines that are going across horizontally. So they're inside them, in other words, the interior. Alternate means they're on opposite sides. So the pink ones would be considered alternate interior angles, and the blue ones would also be considered alternate interior angles. Once again, if the lines are parallel, and right now they look parallel, but they are not. So if I draw in the parallel symbols here, those are now parallel lines. Now, once they're parallel, I can say, hey, I see these alternate interior angles here, and they're going to be congruent. So if this was 110 degrees over here, the other one that is alternate interior is across right here, that must also be 110 degrees. And the final, or sixth, of all the different kinds of angles we're looking at is called same-side interior. The difference is they are between the two lines here. However, same side means obviously they're on the same side. Now, and the difference is once we know that they're parallel, and once again they were not parallel, but now they are, they will be supplementary once the lines are parallel. So for instance, if I wanted to come up with some numbers here, let's say this is 60 degrees. The other one that's the same side interior must be 120 because supplementary means these angles add up to be 180 degrees. That's what supplementary means. If you like what you've seen and heard so far, please like, comment, or subscribe. Thank you, and back to part two. It's time to put it all together now to figure out all the missing angles that you see up here in this figure. There's different ways to get started here. I'm going to go ahead and I notice I have an angle that has 3y and another angle here that has 5y plus 4. I see we have parallel lines because there's markings on here. And I also notice I have this line here that's a transversal. I could have it even extend out a little bit further over here if that helps you see that. But I have a transversal, And it looks like these two are between those two lines, so they're on the interior and they're on the same side. So those are called same side interior. So I'm going to write that over here. Same side, and I'm going to say INT instead of spelling out the whole word just to save time. And if they are same side interior, they would be supplementary. And I'm going to write SUPP for supplementary. So that means that these two angles, 3y and 5y plus 4, must add up to be 180. So I'm going to write 3y plus 5y plus 4 equals 180 degrees. I'm going to add together my y's, so I get 8y. At the same time, I'm going to go and subtract 4. So if I subtract 4 on this side, subtract 4 over here, I get equals 176. And then my final move would be to go ahead and divide by 8. And if you grab your calculator, take 176 divided by 8, you should get y equals 22. All right, so that's our first solving here. We've solved for y. We still have x's and we still have a z over here. So let's go ahead now and let's figure out x. I see an angle here that has x in it, and I see another one over here. I still have my parallel lines, and I also have a new transversal here, and I can kind of extend it out over here if that helps you see better. But that is my transversal right here. And these will be between the two lines, and they're on the opposite sides or alternate sides. So these are what we call alternate, my ALT, and then INT for interior angles. And if they're alternate interior, that means they are congruent. And once again, the shortcut for congruent means an equals with a squiggly line above it. And if they're congruent, that means they are equal to each other. So therefore, 3x plus 4 must equal 5x minus 32. So I'm going to go ahead now and I am going to add 32 to both sides, add 32 over here as well, and I'm going to subtract 3x on both sides. So if I take 4 and 32, I get 36. And on this side, 5x minus 3x is 2x. And of course, my 3x is gone here, my negative 32 is gone here. So I have 2x equals 36. Now I divide by 2. And I'm going to get x equals 18. I'm just going to say it on reverse sides here. So x is 18. So using my geometric relationship of alternate interior angles and the mathematical relationship of those angles being congruent, I was able to solve for x. All right, last but not least, I'm going to go after z here. Now there's a couple ways I could do this one if I wanted to. I do notice that 3x plus 4 and z, these two angles here, are vertical angles. So I could set them equal to each other because they are, if they are vertical, they're always congruent. I also notice up here, well, 5x minus 32 and z, that angle here and this angle here could also be considered to be corresponding angles. I'm going to do that one. So I'm going to say corresponding angles, corresponding. And corresponding angles are always going to be congruent when we have parallel lines. And once again, oh, wait, we do have parallel lines over here. So that means I can say z is going to be equal to 5x minus 32. Now, typically, this isn't very helpful because z is one variable and x is a different one. However, we do know what x is. X is 18 over here. So we can say z equals 5 times 18, and then we can subtract 32. What is 5 times 18? Grab your calculator. 5 times 18 should be 90, and then if we take 90 and subtract 32, we will get 58. So z ends up being 58. So now you see how to put it all together here using the 3 new angle relationships that you learned about in this video. Same side interior angles, alternate interior angles, and corresponding angles. Hope you got a lot out of this video and hope to see you again soon. Thank you.